Hello, listeners. Welcome to another great podcast. This is Satavisa. For today's podcast, we have with us Srini Srinivasan, CTO and founder of Aerospike. Hello, Srini. Welcome to Analytics Insight. It's great to have you here.
Hello, Satavisa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now, can you please brief me about the services provided by Aerospike?
Aerospike has been in business for about more than a decade. We started in 2009 in order to build a high performance database technology to handle some of the most intensive real time applications used in the internet. We started off in ad tech, for example, as well as expanded to telcos, financial services, e commerce, and so on. The idea of delivering very high throughput, low latency transactions on very high amounts of data, large amounts of data into the petabytes is essentially what Aerospike helps our customers do.
I see. That sounds really interesting. Now, can you please help me by telling what kind of disruptive technologies you are using in your company?
Yeah, Aerospike has invented a number of technologies. When we started, we invented technology called the hybrid. We call that the hybrid memory architecture. What um, we ended up doing was leveraging SSDs, which started appearing in the market, maybe 15 plus years ago. We started leveraging it to make all of the data which is stored on SSD to also be accessible in real time with almost the same kind of performance you get from main memory. SSDs are a bit slower than main memory, but we leveraged the random access as well as random access which SSDs have, as well as the ability to write a storage system which is log structured, essentially to deal with the write leveling issues of SSDs. So we kind of adapted our software to provide to expand the amount of real-time data you can store in a node. Now, this has a couple of consequences. One is we're able to provide a sub-millisecond read response times as well as write response times by storing the data in SSD, not just in DRAM, which was basically the real-time storage of choice before we invented this technology of hybrid memory architecture. Now, when we start using SSDs for real-time data, we are able to store a lot more data per node, which means the amount of data, real-time data that a single node can store is much higher because the amount of SSDs you can have in a node can go to tens of terabytes these days. While in memory, you can only store maximum maybe a terabyte if you really stretch it. So you get a 10 to 20x more real-time data per node, which also reduces the cost by about 5x. So the TCO is much better. So larger and larger applications, which use a lot of data in real time, can deliver these millions of transactions per second on with very high uptime on smaller cluster sizes, for example.
Amazing. Now, if we go a little farther into the discussion of hybrid memory architecture, how would you like to scale its performance rates?
Yeah. The way we think about it is Aerospike has worked really hard, not just using the storage architecture, but also in leveraging various technologies on the networking side, as well as the ability to use the processors, you run on multi-core processors, NUMA pinning, and various other techniques which are used in software by using multiple threads and multiple sockets on the node and so on. And the end result is we are able to use all of the hardware in a node to scale up. Now, once we scale up, we are then able to put together multiple nodes together in a scale out network architecture. So you end up having clusters that can handle a lot of throughput and um, providing low response times, but also are able to handle, you know, anywhere from a few terabytes of data to over a petabyte. And all of this is for real-time access.
Well, thanks, Srini, for explaining that so well to me. Now, I'm a little curious about what is your opinion on the growth of web scale applications in India?
That's actually a great question. It's good that you should ask that because when Aerospike started, we started with a team based in Silicon Valley in the US, in Mountain View. And also in the early days, even over 10 years ago, we set up also a team in Bangalore. As a result of which, we have been uh, an integral part of the growth in the internet market in India in terms of web scale applications. We started working with some of the earliest companies that were founded in India. These were companies like InMobi, Snapdeal, and so on. They were founded a long time ago. And then since then, we have seen the growth of the internet, and all about the way the telco market has grown, with Reliance Jio entering the market a few years ago, and Airtel, and others, and they're all consolidating, but there are now three large um, telco providers there with a lot more users than existed 10 years ago. And this particular journey has repeated itself, with Flipkart and Amazon in India expanding, as well as other companies in various places like Big Basket, for example, and various other, like Ola. All of the growth that you see on the internet and in India is on par with what is happening in the rest of the world. And more importantly, the scale of India is enormous. So it is probably the growth has been, I would say, higher than in many other places because there's still a lot more um, growth to come in India. So we've been part of that for over 10 years now.
Well, that sounds great. Now, how do you think the hiring percentage of the developer community is growing in India?
Again, we've seen this a lot because many of the times in the early days, developers who were in some of the early pioneers, if you will, of the internet economy in India, they developed a lot of interesting scalable technologies. One of the things about web scale applications that you mentioned, Satavisa, is that these applications require a certain level of uptime as well as performance, and these techniques were, of course, invented all over the world. But I think India has also contributed because of the scale. People have invented more and more techniques in terms of handling this at scale. Now, these developers who do that ended up moving to other companies. So as the internet and the web scale application development continued to kind of evolve and grow rapidly in India over the last decade, what we have seen is these developers in the early companies have become leaders, and they have grown and they have moved to other companies, and there is a big, a community of developers who know how to build these at scale applications for the consumers to use them.
That sounds really good. Now, lastly, I want to ask you, what are the future plans for Aerospike?
Well, for us, our goal as a real-time platform is to be a key component in the real-time enterprise infrastructure. In order to make this work really well, Aerospike doesn't necessarily build everything ourselves. We are really good and well differentiated in terms of data access for transactional applications. We build various technologies which are fairly classical, but now applied to a much more intense and extreme environment where we can deliver a number of SLAs. So that's Aerospike's focus. Additionally, we're also interacting with other systems on the analysis or analytics side. What that means is you are able to now run queries in SQL on a Presto Trino interface and access data in place in Aerospike. So you can do various kinds of analysis. So we don't necessarily build all of these systems ourselves, but we build connectors to Presto, we build connectors to Spark, we have built connectors to other systems like that, which will then be able to access data from Aerospike directly. and thus expanding the reach of Aerospike into the various other real-time applications and systems that exist. The other big focus for Aerospike is to expand the kinds of applications that can be written in Aerospike. When we started, we basically supported simple key value applications. We then have recently expanded it to document based applications. So if you want to use various document based application development at scale, Aerospike can be a good fit for that. And we allow SQL access to data or documents stored in Aerospike. We continue to kind of evolve more into areas like graph. That is not done yet, but we are in the process of looking at how we can enhance more application development in the graph and time series area using Aerospike, so that at scale applications which require those kinds of APIs will can use Aerospike. And this is something which is going to be attractive to the developers that we spoke about earlier, because when developers want to build an application, they're really interested in certain models, data models like graph or document, which they would like to immediately use. So it makes it very easy to build those apps. And then Aerospike can take care of the scaling of these apps to the web scale applications that we talked about.
Srini, that sounds amazing. I'm sure this is definitely going to help all of our listeners too. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Satavisa. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.